At the beginning of the story, we see a huge force of dragons going somewhere to start an attack. A brave young knight sees this, and he finds it quite amusing how the enemy were sending a huge squad of flying dragons just to fight him only. So he decides to greet those oncoming dragons at full force. So he prepares his steel-based golem and chants a spell to get it ready for the battle. We then get some context from 15 years ago. This was the time when a strong and attractive lady assumed the crown of the demon general. Her power and charm was too much, and no one could resist her. Her influence and actions caused the fall of many kingdoms, and everyone came under her control. Her special ability allowed her to charm any men, and her abilities weren't restricted to any races. All the demon slayers had come under her spell. During her rule, the entire world was turned upside down, and she had made new rules and exceptions to match her own rules. However, this was all messed up, as the demon general passed away. This caused all of her influence to fade, but her rules and exceptions remained. This made the royal aristocrats wonder how they'll deal with the said exception. Giving them too much power can never lead to any good, as history had indicated. The scene then changes to the Diamante Kingdom, where a fat aristocrat told all the workers that they were released of their duties. The person told them that the jobs in the royal castle only belong to people of royalty. So they are going to be released of their duties. Previously, the demon general had made an exception for the commoners, allowing them to be accepted everywhere. But now that she is no longer alive, the rule doesn't need to stand. A young guy raises his hand and asks the aristocrat about the hand-over procedure before leaving. He mentions how they're fine with leaving the job, but want to hand it over properly. This angers the aristocrat, who yells at them, as he felt that mere commoners shouldn't dare question the decisions made by the royals. Despite this, the guy tries to explain how handing over the work is necessary, but the aristocrat just won't have it. Instead, he tells the commoners to pack up their stuff and leave, as the rules don't allow the royals to keep their belongings. Realizing there is no point in arguing anymore, the guy just concedes and agrees to leave without saying anything more. The aristocrat also goes off, citing he has some important business to attend to. After he leaves, the guy mentions how it bothers him to see people who think they can change the world with their actions alone. Anyway, he decides to move on. With a slight snap of his fingers, he ends up making everyone else in the room disappear. He then brings out his inventory bag and ends up storing all the gathered items in it. Following this, the guy decides to leave. He thinks about it is not a big deal for him, as the golem research mission is already done. That being said, he does note that he will no longer be able to use an antenna, as that is reserved for the royals only. So, having a mere 3-meter radius to control things will be hard for him. However, he tries to find content in the fact that he is at least bringing in more speed in exchange for range. He decides to move on from this and see what problems come his way, and deal with it as time goes. For now, he just wants to go out and look for the correct materials for his golem building. Next up, the scene shifts to the king of Diamante, Barzile, sitting down and having a conversation with his royal people. He was talking to the aristocrat from earlier, Zayt. The king mentions how Zayt was looking happy. Zayt reveals that it has to do with the fact that he got rid of the useless commoners, so he feels reassured. The king is happy to know that, as they'll be heading off to a sudden World Council meeting to meet the hero. So he is glad that Zayt is happy, because they can't let him be gloomy in the meeting. So the two of them get ready and use teleportation to go to the meeting spot. The king adds how he still isn't used to this teleportation thing. However, Zayt tells him to get used to it. Currently, teleportation is monitored by the World Council, but in the future, the technique could be theirs. Following this, the so-called hero that took out the demon general arrives at the place. Seeing this, everyone in attendance get impressed by looking at the hero. The hero is actually a girl with long, beautiful hair and eyes. Seeing her up close, everyone couldn't help but be left a bit shocked. Meanwhile, we see that the guy from earlier was having lunch, while reminiscing about getting kicked out from his job. In a way, he thought this was a blessing in disguise, as now he can finally do what he wants. That being said, he still has to do the research for at least another decade to get somewhere. Even then, he has limited time and resources to go after it. For now, he wanted to go to the rare stone shop and try out his luck. As he was left deep in ponder, a horse carriage driver stopped near him and asked the guy what he was thinking of. The guy was unsure about what to say, but the carriage driver told him that he is open to hearing him out. So, the guy explains how his mind is going crazy thinking about what is going to happen. He has a dream to follow, but he is unsure of it and feels like his luck has gone dry. The guy quickly apologizes to the carriage driver, saying he had gone too far with his words. The driver tells him that at least he is self-aware, so that is good. He also adds that the Dragonstone Kingdom isn't as bad of a place as he thinks, and asks him if he is heading towards the capital city, Lapis. The guy tells him that he is indeed going that way, as he has some business to attend to. The driver replies by saying that he is going to Lapis as well. The guy asks the driver if he is a merchant too, to which the driver confirms his assumption. He also informs the guy about how Lapis has some really useful metal, and that one can trade metal and other things for items at the Grand or Vein there. Meanwhile, the guy checks on the merchant's carriage to find out that the wheel had gotten damp. The merchant praises him for having good eyes, to which the guy informs him that he was actually involved in the tech behind the carriage. Following this, the merchant asks the guy if he has any transportation medium, because Lapis isn't exactly walking distance away. The guy says that this is not the case, and that he plans on just hitchhiking his way through and take lifts from others. So, the merchant offers him to give him a lift all the way to Lapis in exchange for help. The guy agrees, and they share basic information. The guy is called Horace, and the merchant is called Ginji. Before they could shake hands though, a loud sound is heard. Hearing this, Horace quickly runs to follow the sound, leaving Ginji worried. Once there, Horace quickly recognizes the sound, as it was done by a large dragon. This worries Horace, as he didn't expect such a top-tier dragon to show up. However, a fearless man by the name of Urief Chiode shows up, and he vows to crush the dragon in the honor of the Chiode Count family. This appalls Horace, as he knows that the guy probably stands no chance at the fight. More problems had already broken out by that point, so Urief Chiode was trying to get Horace T to move out of the way of danger, as Horace was trying to help out. However, a family was begging for their daughter, who goes stuck inside the fire caused by the dragon's attack. However, the rescuers told them that there is nothing they can do to save their daughter amidst this fire. Horace hears this, and without showing any care, he jumps forward to go and help the girl. Everyone tried to stop him, telling him how this could potentially end his life, but he could not care less. He goes inside the burning house and asks the girl if she is okay. However, she did not respond. This made Horace worry more, so he went deeper inside the burning house. Eventually, he finds the girl, all burned up, but with a bit of life left in her. Horace understands that she was still not finished, so he ends up using a special potion to rejuvenate her almost immediately. But before he can make his way out of the place, the roof of the house suddenly breaks down and falls on him. People on the outside see this and assume that Horace must be over. They regret what happened and wish that Horace actually listened to them and not go inside. However, Horace was fine, as he got up from the debris, all while keeping the girl safe. He breaks out of the shackles that were keeping him down and makes a safe exit with the girl, while also managing to save her favorite teddy bear. Horace then hands over the girl to her mother, who was worried, but Horace assured her that her daughter is fine, and that she just inhaled some smoke, so she will be good to go once she wakes up. Ginji sees all of this take place in front of him, but he decides against asking Horace anything about his abilities. Just then, Horace asks Ginji how the dragon is being dealt with. Ginji informs him that the dragon has been taken down by the town's mages, and the so-called hero, Urief Chiode, was trying his best to slash the dragon down with his sword, but it looked like the dragon was not being affected. Seeing this, Horace felt pathetic, as the guy was doing nothing good but try and show off. Ginji asks Horace how he feels about this, to which he says that he does not see anything good coming out of this, something that Ginji agrees with. A few moments later, the dragon wakes up and growls at Urief Chiode, scaring him. The dragon subsequently attacks the man, sending him flying. Ginji feels like that was quite satisfying, but Horus felt that it was quite bad. The dragon once again came back and was about to launch an attack on the townsfolk. This is when Horus, who was not in the mood, engages the dragon. He wanted to finish it off quickly, and told the dragon that he has no personal feelings against it, but it will be bad if he does nothing. So, he uses his sword to slash down the dragon and finish it. Because of this, smoke fills up the area, and a plethora of gold coins appear out of nowhere. Horus doesn't pick it up though, leaving it for the family who got their house burned by the dragon to fix their house. Later, as Ginji and Horus started traveling again, Ginji asks Horus why he had not picked up the gold coins. Horus told him that carrying such a heavy amount of coins would be troublesome for both him and Ginji, and he does not want that. Ginji likes his considerable nature, but tells him to not be so nice. He also mentions how he thinks that Horus had left that money for repairment of the damages caused by the dragon. Horus says that he did do that, but judging from the inside of the house, he could tell that it was not just a single mother running the family, and that there was a father around too. That being said, he does think that it still must be devastating to get your house burnt to crisp. Ginji agrees. Ginji then says that he will directly head to the destination without taking any detours. Horus has no objection to that. Meanwhile, the World Council meeting continues, as the leader of the hero community, Hero Lanhea, brings forward the Ruster report. Following this, the World Council decides to grant Hero Lanhea a wish for her work in eradicating the demon general. Can be anything she wishes. Hero Lanhea takes in the offer, and decides to ask for one thing. For the work that was done by Master Horus, the person who trained her, and everyone else mentioned in the Ruster report, she wants to obtain the internation polygamy privilege in return for the work they did. This demand from Hero Lanhea had stunned the World Council, but they continued on regardless. Barzile, the king of Diamante, asked the Hero Lanhea, just what kind of a person is this Master Horus that she is talking about? She elaborates that Horus, despite being a commoner, is one hell of a man, who is the strongest golem master in this world. She learned from a letter sent by him a week back that Horus is working in the royal castle of the Diamante kingdom. This rings a bell for Zate, who wonders if Horus was one of the commoners who he ended up firing earlier. Hero Lanhea then confirms it by declaring to everyone that her master was fired by the Diamante kingdom. Barzile, the king, was pissed off at Zate for firing the hero's master, but Zate explained how he had no idea about Horus being among the commoners. Following this, Lanhea mentions how she only got to know about this because the master sent her a letter a week back. Other than that, the master is very secretive, and they know almost nothing about him. She also adds how because of the demon general's influence, many kingdoms adopted a rule to give commoners equal rights and jobs. They thought having commoners among them could help them fight the demon general's influence. However, she thinks that the Diamante kingdom has simply forgotten about that. Following this, Lanhea thinks that they don't require the polygamy privilege, because her master is heading somewhere else. Instead, they need civil rights to get access to the location. So, she turns her attention to Princess Lucia of the Dragonstone Kingdom, who was filling in for her sick father. She asked her to grant her master, Horus, and all members of the Ruster report full citizenship of the kingdom. She mentions how in order to use the rare stone market and the minerals that are in the Dragonstone Kingdom, they require full citizenship of the capital city, Lapis. This is what she wants as reward for taking out the demon general. Princess Lucia is left overwhelmed, while King Barzile was left shocked. He simply does not want to allow it. The Ruster report, despite being commoners, possess a lot of power. They defeated the demon general after all, and all of them look attractive. So he just does not want another kingdom to take them in. He just won't let it happen. However, Lanhea told him to not get so cocky. The king asks Hero Lanhea just what does she want. Hero Lanhea asks her if he does not understand that she only wants what she has asked for. However, the king told her to calm down and asked her if all she wants is minerals for the golem master, Horus. If so, the kingdom of Diamante is the greatest nation according to him. Because of their large connections and trading network, they can obtain minerals from everywhere, including the Dragonstone Kingdom. He also promises to provide all the privileges to Horus, so he asks Lanhea to reconsider. However, Lanhea says that Diamante is the greatest nation only in name. In reality, it is just a place that was formed by people who ran away from the demon general's rule. She states that a bunch of commoners like them were only able to win because of Horus' training. He is a golem master who created golem staff who can work 10 times the load of a normal person. Not only that, he can control over 500 of them at once. And the Diamante Kingdom ended up firing him. Not only that, but the kingdom are going to be in financial trouble, so there's no point in staying there. This confuses Barzile, who doesn't understand what financial trouble she is talking about. This is when Lanhea reveals that all the kingdoms have been living off of exceptions made during the Demon General's era. Those exceptions include extended repayment dates from money lenders. This also made sure the loan interests were significantly lowered, and in some cases it was one-sided monetary funding from the moneylenders. However, those days are long gone now, and money is being collected now. Lanhea then asks Barzile if he has noticed how no money lender has been bothering them. This is because the hero community who collect a lot of gold coins paid back the loan and bought the bonds for themselves. The hero community is also in the money lending business, and upon checking all documentation, they can tell for sure that the Diamante Kingdom is the kingdom most in debt. And the person who has the highest debt is Zate, whose debt can't be paid back even if he were to sell off all of his property. This makes Zate fall from his chair in shock. However, Lanhea does inform them that the loans can be paid back in installments, and the interest rate is low. So they can take their time in paying back. And besides that, she mentions that the kingdom with the lowest debt and the ones who are paying back are the Dragonstone Kingdom. After all, it was with the dragon silver sword named Tail Agartha that the hero Lanhea finally slayed the demon general. So, she just asks Barzile, the king of Diamante, if given the choice, would one go for the kingdom that is suffering from a financial crisis, or would they go for the steady and helpful one? So, Lanhea considers her request to get citizenship in Lapis to be a done deal. Princess Lucia confirms it, saying she has granted full-fledged citizenship to Lanhea and her partners, and has given them full access to the rare stone market. Lanhea is happy to get the deal done, and was on her way to the Dragonstone capital. However, before leaving, she made sure to warn everyone about not trying to mess with Princess Lucia, as she will now be loyal to the princess and won't tolerate misbehavior. Following this, Lanhea makes her way to the capital of Dragonstone, Lapis, where she anxiously waited for Horus. She subsequently finds him and gives him a big hug. She also tells him to skip over the immigration process, as she has already secured full citizenship for them. She then takes him to the mansion, which she has also secured as a part of the deal. Once there, Horus is surprised by just how big the place is, while Lanhea exclaims it to be their love nest. There, they also meet up with another partner, Tyria, the maid. She is happy to receive the master, Horus, and mentions that her, Lanhea and Horus will be living here by themselves. They take Horus to the special room they have prepared for him, just for him to create golems. Horus couldn't be happier, as the room had everything he needed. He also finds out how they had almost every rare mineral present for him to use, and wondered how much it costed. Lanhea told him not to worry, saying it was just pocket exchange. Meanwhile, someone had seemingly arrived outside the mansion, wanting to check just how strong the golem master Horus really is. We get to know that the person is Idrika, the alchemist of the Dragonstone Kingdom. She had gotten tired from all the walking, because the mansion was large. She came to test Horus because it was a direct request from Lady Lucia. She felt a bit nervous about the meeting, but quickly readied herself for the big moment. For context, we see that Lady Lucia had told Idrika to go to the hero's mansion to run an investigation. She was confused, so Lady Lucia explains how they have recently provided national citizenship to the members of the Ruster Report. However, whether those heroes can actually be trusted is a different question altogether. Idrika was not so sure about investigating them, as there are a lot of them, and investigating them all would take ages. However, Lady Lucia tells her to just investigate Golem Master Horus. She explains how the Golem Master is someone who is considered to be the mentor by the heroes, He trained them, so evaluating him should be enough. Furthermore, the Golem Master is someone who is deeply loved and admired by the great hero Lanhea, so there must definitely be something about him that makes him great. So, Idrika was sent to the mansion to investigate them. Inside the mansion, Idrika has a sit-down meeting with the Golem Master, where she invites him to the underground of the castle. It is a special magic room, where she will be able to evaluate the abilities that he possesses. Horus asks if this request was made by the government, which Idrika confirms. So, he agrees to go there. Lanhea also insists on tagging along to see how things are done. Idrika, very nicely, tells her that she can join along. However, she was evidently not nice with Horus. They arrive outside the palace, which Lanhea finds to be incredible. Horus mentions that the underground room must have a lot of things down there, but not many people probably get to see it. Lanhea asks him what he means by that, to which Horus says that the underground magic room is probably the epicenter of the mana pipes. Lanhea does not understand what that means, so Horus explains that it is like a switch that turns lights on and off. However, instead of that, the pipes release mana. The machine hosts a system where if someone puts a demon coin inside, the coin is turned into energy and released into the city with the mana pipe, making day-to-day tasks easier. Lanhea learns about this and asks Idrika if she is in charge of handling all of this. Idrika says yes and mentions that Horus seems to know quite a lot about magic tools after all. She was pissed off at him and thought that being able to give an explanation about the mana pipes is no feat. She vows to not let go of his mistakes and expose his fraudulent ways to Lady Lucia. However, her look and her words come off as funny to Horus, who can't help but laugh. This angers Idrika, so Horus explains how he finds her words funny and childish. They end up entering the secret room, where Idrika decides to show Horus around, but vows to not forgive his mishaps. She then shows him the main plant of the magic power supply. Her task for him is to get the magic power supply running. She asks him if he can do that. Horus mentions how he has done similar things in the Diamante Kingdom, so it must not be an issue. However, he finds it amusing that there was only one power supply. Idrika tells him to not compare them to a major kingdom, which Horus finds fair enough. Horus then asks if the magic power supply is fully turned off, to which Idrika says yes, and she finds it stupid how he did not realize this from inside his mansion. Lanhea informs Idrika that the hero's mansion has gone through a big renovation, so even if the town's magic supply is turned off, magic still flows perfectly inside the mansion. Horus states that it was done by Tiras, who had installed several systems for magic to flow inside the house properly, although it has not reached every room yet. Idrika is stunned to learn this, as Tiras only recently received control of the mansion, so for her to do all of this in close to no time is shocking. She attributes it to Tiras just being incredibly talented by herself, and she thinks of Horus as someone who likes to brag about their students to insinuate that they are strong too. However, whether he is strong or not would get proven in a matter of moments. Horus then takes out the core of the supply, which is an iron rod. Lanhea is confused, so Horus explains that by using expensive iron, they can create a core that supplies magic with a smooth flow. Idrika brings out a powder which would help clear out the upper layer of the core and reveal its normal state. However, it turns out that Horus already knows, and he ends up spraying the powder before her. The core comes out as dirty black. Idrika knows that, and tells Horus that it is his job to fix it. But before that, Idrika decides to try to fix it herself. She makes an impressive effort, but fails to make any difference. She mentions that the core used to be fully gray, but not anymore. Idrika then asks Horus to try and fix the core, but Horus suggests she do it again. Idrika refuses, as she is the one giving orders, and she won't be doing things according to him. However, Horus and Lanhea request her to do it, so she agrees to do it again. As she gets ready to do it, Horus arrives from behind her and touches one side of the core over her hand. The power he sends through her hand made that particular much whiter compared to the one he didn't touch. This made Lanhea and Horus laugh out loud. Idrika understand what just happened. While Idrika could not believe what just happened, she asked Horus how he managed to do it, because she has never seen it get this white. Horus decides to teach her and walk her through the process. He tells her that the most important thing about this is to provide stable magic to it, instead of trying too hard. He states how she should understand that she does not need to form anything, and that all she needs to do is let it take its natural shape. He advises her to just let her imagination run wild, instead of being hell-bent on just whitening it. Idrika follows all of Horace's advice and ends up fully whitening the core. Horace said it was not bad for a first attempt. Meanwhile, Idrika felt jealous. She could not believe that just using his technique made it so much easier, whereas she worked years to get there. She was mad at Horace for being so good, and decides to one day defeat him in his own craft. Later, we see Lady Lucia coming to meet Idrika at her place, but sees her exhausted from all the work. Her lackeys tell Lucia that Idrika suddenly became overly motivated and has been trying all sorts of different things out of nowhere. Lucia understands that this probably has something to do with the Golem Master coming to pay a visit. After the lackeys to start working at the magic power supply room, Lady Lucia hangs around with Idrika. Seeing her sleep, Lady Lucia couldn't help but feel happy, as she looked really calm. However, in her sleep, Idrika was still concerned about beating Horace and claiming victory, something the lady found really cute. Meanwhile, at the power plant, everyone was shocked to see the progression that was made. The next day, the princess and Idrika were amazed to see just how fast the horse wagons had gotten thanks to some cutting-edge engineering from Horace. The new upgrade has made the horse wagons significantly faster and given them the ability to carry more weight than before. This is essential for them, as now they can carry out more stuff from the capital Lapis to other smaller cities and towns. Idrika praises Horace for his work, as this was by no means an easy task. Horace was unaffected as usual because he knows that this was an important thing for the nation, and that if they do not work hard, they will not make any progress. During his time in the Diamante Kingdom, they had to carry a lot of stuff just to uphold everyone. The princess and Idrika are taken aback by this. However, the Princess Lucia does mention that she heard from the hero Lanhea about Horace's work at the Diamante Kingdom. She knows how he made tons of golems to get the work done at the kingdom, and she also heard that he had used over 500 of them. This stuns Idrika. Horace does admit that he used golems, but it was a very tough time for them, as there was a lack of food and resources. Yet, he still pulled it off. Following this, Horace mentions that the new wagon is still not as good as the old one yet. Idrika wonders if this is because Horace made a mistake, but he clarifies that this is because the new wagon has no friction at all, which is why, despite being heavier, the horses actually feel lesser weight, which is confusing for them. So, he thinks it will eventually come good as they keep practicing with it. Idrika then points out how it is ridiculous how Horace managed to make this new wagon in less than an hour. She does not understand how Horace manages to do this. Horace states that it is because he is a golem master, and golem masters need to be adept at earth elemental magic, magic tool creation, and alchemy. So, no wonder he has a wide set of skills. Idrika says that mastering even one of those skills is hard, so it is weird how he managed to master so many. Lucia was also amazed by it, and asked him how he manages to keep up with so much. Horace mentioned that he reads a lot of books to gain knowledge. Idrika thinks that is just a waste of time. But Horace tells her that being a golem master requires a lot of brains, so getting some knowledge prior hand can help. Horace tells Idrika that to make newer technology, they need to learn from old techniques. It is by gathering already accessible knowledge that one can create new ideas. Just simply saying that something is a waste of time just showcases a lack of planning abilities. Lady Lucia agrees with this, as she points out how Idrika herself said that when she goes out to buy groceries, she ends up buying too much, embarrassing Idrika. Lady Lucia's blunt and homely behavior had Horace taken aback, as normally, royal family members don't act like this with commoners. Lady Lucia tells Horace to ease up and be himself with them, as there is no reason to censor oneself. Horace is glad about that, as it will make his life a lot easier. Despite this, Horace feels awkward. He cannot pinpoint the exact reason why he feels this way, but something felt off. Idrika understood his situation and told him that it is probably the culture of the Dragonstone Kingdom. In their kingdom, discrimination is non-existent. People of royal and noble background live along with commoners like it is normal. Even at school, Kids from both royal and merchant backgrounds go to school with kids of commoners. This is done so the people of privileged backgrounds can relate to the struggles of those who are not so privileged. In other countries, royals and nobles go to school together, different from commoners, which makes them think that their way of life is the normal way of life. However, in Dragonstone, kids know how people from humble backgrounds live, so they can get along better. In other words, people from the Dragonstone kingdom can more or less relate to everyone, which is something that can't be said for other kingdoms. Horus fully agrees with this, as he understands what feels different in this place. Later on, Idrika asks Horus if he doesn't think that his techniques are a bit too old-fashioned. Horus gets what she means, but it is like that for a reason. After all, he follows the teachings of a man from ancient times. This is when Horus pulls out a book that he carries from the said man. Idrika and Lady Lucia are amazed by how well maintained the old book was. Horus says that the book was from a century ago and covers the journey of his idol and his various findings as a golem master. Idrika, naturally curious, wanted to see the book for herself to know about the man Horus looks up to. However, Horus refuses to let her touch it, as he cannot let it get damaged. Idrika gets mad and asks him just what he thinks of her as. However, Horus explains that the book contains the secret of how once upon a time, 5 people usurped the world. He says that the book talks about how those people can be defeated and that one needs to be a golem master for it. Idrika learns about this and jokingly asks if Horus became a golem master to save the world like in the book. However, Horus is serious and that is why he did it. Idrika is shocked to know this and states that the 5 people are from thousands of years ago, so they're probably not alive anymore. However, Horus doesn't want to go into more details about it and decides to keep quiet. He then says that he will be moving on from there as his work was done. However, before leaving, he tells Idrika that if she wants to get strong, she must find something that she is passionate about. There are tons of things that people do in this world, so she should look into that and explore things to decide her passion for herself. After all, magic can be an incredible thing. Idrika gets fired up learning about this and decides to go explore things when she is free. Lady Lucia is also excited about it. As Horus starts leaving, Idrika tells him that he can feel free to ask for her help when it comes to the axle bearings of the horse cart. Meanwhile, the scene shifts to the Grand Or of Kinsekai. It is one of the biggest dungeon. The entrance to the dungeon is connected to the Dragonstone's capital, Lapis. Monsters defeated in this dungeon usually leave high rewards for the slayers. Inside the dungeon, we see a bunch of adventurers buzzing around for a chance to get successful. A particular man, Giodor of the house of the Emidade family of the Diamante Kingdom, is annoyed by this. He doesn't like the lively atmosphere. His henchmen tell him that the adventurers came here not because they're excited about the loot, but because they want to see the holy sword that Giodor possesses. The henchmen ask him to show his sword to them. This boosts Giodor's ego, who laughs and states that it is not easy to get a glimpse of the legendary holy sword. Just then, he hears some other henchmen talk about the hero Lanhea being present in the dungeon. They are excited about her presence and mention how this might be the biggest haul ever. After all, the hero herself was here in person. Even though rumors stated that she was actually there to train with her master and not for the loot. Overtaken by jealousy, Giodor goes over to the guys and grabs one of them by the collar. He angrily yells at them and tells them that they should not talk of any commoner in his presence. Discussion about a commoner holds no value to someone like him. Following this, Giodor asks the adventurer about where the hero went. A girl tells him about her location, and Giodor decides to head there to show everyone something interesting by humbling the hero. Meanwhile, the hero Lanhea and the golem master Horus were seen getting ready for a friendly duel, with many people watching their fight. Because of the big crowd they gathered, Lanhea apologizes to Horus, saying she had no idea that this many people would appear. Horus told her it is okay, as he allowed everyone to stay and watch the duel. This surprises Lanhea, as previously Horus was opposed to appearing in public. Horus explains that it was because of the demon general, who had an ability to gain total control over men. So, it would have been an issue if the demon general took over him. Lanhea understands his point and then gets ready to start the battle. As the two of them get ready to fight, Geodor steps in out of nowhere. He came forward and asked Horus if he is the master of the hero, because he finds this hilarious. Horus' fighting stance came off as very amateurish to him. So, he points out that if a man like him trained the hero, then the hero isn't any good herself. The hero Lanhea tells Horus to ignore the guy and not respond to him. The crowd in attendance also agree and start throwing trash at Geodor for interrupting the fight. They had come to see the hero train after all. This angers Geodor, who says that he can't believe that the general people bought into the claim that a bunch of commoners managed to take out the demon general. He claims that it is simply not true. However, Lanhea and Horus simply ignored him and started their duel. Lanhea attacked suddenly, but Horus blocked her regardless, impressing Lanhea as usual. Horus then asks Lanhea about Geodor and what problem he exactly has. Lanhea says that he is just a spoiled brat who can't accept the fact that a commoner managed to defeat the demon general. This pisses off Geodor, who doesn't like being called a spoiled brat. He once again loudly declares that there is simply no way for commoners to defeat the demon general. They just got lucky that the demon general went into hiding, and so they came forward and claimed they beat it. He then gets ready to attack, as he states that he will be showing them the true strength of Geodor Emidade. However, as he rushes forward to attack, Horus does nothing but simply glare back at him and tells him to get out of his way. The sheer power of the glare sends Geodor flying back miles and hitting a wall. This shocks everyone, as Geodor's henchmen attend to him. Horus then goes on to explain that he simply concentrated mana on his eyes before glaring at Geodor. The air has mana in it too, so when the air felt the glare, it got scared and moved away. The sheer pressure of the mana was so strong that it sent Geodor flying back. Horus goes on to mock Geodor, saying that someone like him doesn't even need to be beaten with swordsmanship or magic. Just the air is enough to beat him. Geodor gets taken away, as everyone finally understood the power of Horus. After all, he is the master of the hero. Meanwhile, the hero Lanhea looked at this in awe. Normally, when someone's aura changes drastically, a color comes out to represent their change. However, Horus was transparent, meaning this wasn't even a drastic change for him. Horus had just defeated a trained swordsman, who had the holy sword with him. Impressed, Lanhea praises the golem master. Meanwhile, Horus mentions how Tiras calls his eyes the equivalent of a cannon, and he thinks that she isn't wrong about that. Following this, Lanhea gets ready to start her duel with Horus properly. Both of them get into fight mode, activating their aura and all. Lanhea decides to charge in at full steam with her wooden sword, but Horus' aura is too strong to penetrate. Horus riles her up, saying that after so much training, if she isn't even able to penetrate his base aura, then training more is useless for her. However, Lanhea isn't a spring chicken either, so she forces on and manages to break through the aura barrier. However, her attack doesn't even bother Horus. He catches her sword with his mere fingertips and calls the blow light. He says that it's the same problem that he told her earlier. Just because she defeated the demon general doesn't warrant her to be complacent. There are still plenty of places for them to go and fight at. Even after such a monumental event, if she's still not able to carry herself, then it is not going well for her. Frustrated, Lanhea says that Horus has gotten stronger, and that it is unfair for him to engage her now that he is probably 100 times stronger. Horus agrees and pushes her away. Subsequently, he asks her to come at him again, so that they can do it properly this time. Lanhea prepares herself, as she thinks about how Horus is ridiculously strong. Just like always, she can't even hold a candle to him. However, she smirks confidently, as she vows to someday get on his level to stand beside him, and maybe one day exceed him as well. At the Emidade household, Geodor was being chewed out by his father. He was mad at Geodor for picking a fight with the hero community. Geodor said that it was his father who told him that the heroes were lying about the demise of the demon general. His father still has that sentiment. However, he doesn't condone the direct expression of it, especially considering the Emidade household is 20,000 gold coins in debt to the Ruster report. This shocks Geodor, as that debt is 100 times more than their annual budget. His father reaffirms that, and says that they need to pay it back now that the world is no longer in emergency after the demon general's passing. This makes Geodor think that only if they can somehow prove that the commoners are lying, they can avoid paying the debt, as the emergency will come back. However, this pisses off his father even more. He exclaims that the World Council has accepted that the Ruster report took out the Demon King, so there is no point in doing this. He states that the Emerald were actually trying to strike a deal with the Ruster report to lower the interest rate, but Geodor ruined it for them. Geodor says that they can easily get money from the kingdom, as he is the holder of the Holy Sword. However, his father makes it clear that the kingdom won't pay more than the 200 gold coins annually, and that Holy Sword that Geodor uses requires them to pay money to the church. It is not just them, as the church has been taking fees from people of all nations. This is because the church itself is under debt to the Ruster report, so they must take money from others. In other words, it can be said that the entire world is currently running off of the Ruster report. So, it makes it even more infuriating that Geodor went ahead and messed with the top people of the community. Angered, Geodor grabs the Holy Sword and gets out of the room, not saying a thing to his father. Meanwhile, Horus could be seen traveling alone. He decides to go to a particular place, but Geodor, in disguise, stops him from behind. He puts his sword on Horus' neck and tells him and his teammates to forgive the Emerald's debt. Horus finds it funny that Geodor is resorting to this after not being able to beat him from the front. Geodor is shocked, as he didn't expect Horus to recognize him, and questions him how he managed to recognize him. Horus pointed out how this is thanks to the very distinct smell that comes from the Holy Sword. Realizing that he has been figured out, Geodor takes off the veil and reveals his true self, now demanding for Horus to remove their debt. He says it as an order rather than a threat. Hearing this, Horus explains how the debts were racking up back when the Demon General was still around. Despite this, his girls fought the Demon General and won. So, if he were to forgive the debts now, it would be a slap on the face of the heroes who worked so hard. However, Geodor doesn't care. He says it is their duty to follow his orders as commoners. He also goes on a rant, saying that even if the Ruster report now claims to be heroes, what they were in the beginning was some mere adventure guild. And money is not paid to adventurers who come back unalive. So, it is their fault for coming back alive from the war. Horus tells Geodor to stop. The guy refuses to stop, and this causes all hell to break out. Geodor freezes on the spot, failing to move at all. He is shocked by this, so Horus explains that it is the same case as what happened in the dungeon. Mana is stored in a place different from the body, and it can be stopped by Horus if he wants to. Not to mention, the sword has its own special mana, which can only be used against the top mana users in the world against Horus, not someone like Geodor. Horus then decides to teach Geodor a lesson, as he did not learn from the first time. So he decides to hit him in the face with a punch. Horus then ends up hitting him with a wicked punch to the face. Lanhea quickly rushes out to inform Horus about the presence of the Holy Sword, but sees that Horus already took care of the matter. Tiras tells her to calm down, as Horus can take care of himself. Just then, a bunch of people come over to give fruits and bake sweets to Horus and Co as gifts. Tiras mentions that they have already received tons of these gifts. As Lanhea and Horus are confused, Tiras explains that the work they did on the magic power plant has fixed the city's mana issues. Now they are able to work more efficiently. So, the government announced to everyone that the taxes have down thanks to their work. So, people from all walks of lives are coming forward to bring gifts for Horus and company. Lanhea wonders if the government took advantage of the influx of money coming into the country. She assumes that they must have confiscated a lot of money for themselves and are now giving small reforms to the public. However, Tiras clarifies that the Dragonstone Kingdom maintains a level of transparency, so corruption is not an issue. A while later, Lanhea mentions to Horus that he has become a lot more mellow compared to the past. Horus says that it has to do with the warmness within this kingdom. He is just helping this country because it coincides with his own goals, but they are thankful to him, which is something unexpected for him. Lanhea and Tiras understands that this is because of how Horus was treated in the Diamante Kingdom. No one never really thanked him for his work, so he does not expect anyone to thank him for his work here too. At the Diamante Kingdom, the king was finally realizing the importance of Horus, as various reports came in from the soldiers and nobles about a lack of magic tools and axles breaking down, stopping the food transport. This made the king realize just how much the city is in tatters. Back when Horus was still working, they did not need to worry about things such as magic tools and mana supplies. He would also handle all the fixing work, whereas currently, the noble alchemists who are working on things are not nearly as technically astute. He also had a large inventory being a golem master, which allowed them to keep spare parts for axles and stuff. However, all of that is gone now. Following this, another complaint came in. This time, it was a complaint from the general public, who were mad because their demands were not being fulfilled anymore. Previously, Horus would take care of this, but the new nobles in charge are not doing the proper work. The king tells his guard to just go and tell the people that they will instate a commoner to help them soon. After getting rid of that problem, the king was more concerned about getting the food supply transportation issue sorted, as not having enough food will be the final nail in the coffin for their kingdom's reputation. Following this, the king receives information about Geodor's attack on the hero community to get their debt forgiven. However, he got knocked out in the place. This pisses off the king, as this will cause them to have repercussions. The king asks the guy if the Ruster report has demanded something from them. The guy says that while they have not asked for anything yet, the Emidade family are 20,000 gold coin in debt to the hero community, which is a lot as their annual budget is just 200 gold coins. The king notes that he only gave the noble status to the Emidade is because of the holy sword they have in their possession. If only had they spent their annual budget to build some sort of business in the region, they would not have gotten into such a problem. However, after considering all the things, the king decides to pay off the debt from the kingdom's reserve. In return, he wants to take away all the property and belongings of the Emidade family and send them to exile at the frontier. He decides to do this based on something the Emidade did for him back in the days. It was a time when the king really needed the help, and only the Emidades came forward to help him. So, he attributes his current position to be something that would not have been possible without them. However, after paying off the debt from their behalf, a new problem arose. A noble reported to the king, saying that now an influx of sons from noble families have been seen hurling insults at the hero community. This angers the king, as he demands for a proper explanation. This is when the guy informs him that this is because the nobles have taken note of how the king paid off the debts of the Emidade and want to take advantage of it. So they have sent their sons to misbehave with the heroes, hoping to get a reaction out of them, and in turn, cause the king to pay their debts on their behalf. The king could not believe it that his own people were doing this. The guy mentions that they have launched an investigation about it, and found out that the dukes have conducted a meeting regarding this topic, to get the king to pay up for them. This deeply upsets the king. He thinks that the people are just stupid, as they only see things at surface level. They don't understand that they have been let off lightly until now because of the Golem Master's leniency. Despite that, the king inquires about the combined outstanding debt, and learns that it is over 10 billion gold coins. This is 100% more than their annual budget of 10 million, so it is impossible for them to pay back this much. Which is why the noble's actions are irking him. Despite that, he knows that he needs to pay it back, and bow down to the Golem Master and apologize. But he does not have the money for it, so he just goes into a mental breakdown. Meanwhile, in Lapis, Tiras and Lanhea read about the attack on the hero community by the Diamante Kingdom nobles. Tiras says that she saw this coming right after the king paid the 20,000 gold coin for the Emidades. The people of the kingdom are trying to play smart and get things done. Lanhea wants to focus on the fact that people of the hero community are being attacked, and she wants compensation for that. However, it is virtually impossible for them to pay back the debt, said Tiras. However, she suggests that they should take some asset from the kingdom to penalize them for their constant attacks. Lanhea is not quite sure about what she wants to take from them. However, upon thinking more, she thinks of getting the antenna from the Diamante Kingdom. After all, that would really help Horus in his golem work. Currently, he can only control his golems within a 3-meter radius. But with the antenna, he is able to control them throughout the entire capital. So, they decide to take the antenna from the Diamante Kingdom. The scene changes back to the Diamante Kingdom, where the king evaluates this to be a turning point for them. However, Reiser, one of his handy men, tells the king that he does not agree with the demands of the Ruster report. He states how handing over the antenna will prove to be beneficial for them, but there are still other things to consider. He states that he thinks that Horus must have sacrificed his range control ability to gain the ability to make better golems, which is why he needed the antenna. So, if they were to hand over the antenna to them, Horus would have no reason to ever return to the Diamante Kingdom. The king also connects dots from various books he had read to understand that Horus must have sacrificed his range to gain better control. The antenna is now essential for him, and it is plausible that he came to the kingdom in the first place because he wanted access to the antenna. The king then asks Reiser about what the common people are thinking about the demands of the Ruster report. Reiser informs him that currently the antenna is not being used by anyone, so the normal people think that handing over something useless to reap benefits should be the way to go. The king says that everyone is short-sighted within the kingdom. He then thinks about the advice his father gave him. It was to not act before seeing something with one's own eyes. Until then, gather the needed information to do what is the best. He finally understands what his father meant, so he tells Reiser to prepare the handover of the antenna. He is doing this after considering everything, even though this will defeat any purpose for Horus to return one day. After signing off the deal, the king asks Reiser if he thinks the Golem Master is mad at him for the mistreatment he suffered while working for them. Reiser thinks that the Golem Master does not care about that. After all, he is the kind of guy who let off Geodor with just a punch after the guy drew the holy sword on him, and basically threatened him with it. The king understands that, but Reiser asks him if he regrets what happened, to which the king denies it. Reiser states that he understands why Horus would leave. He saw him deal with the complaints of the general people. He mentions that dealing with the complaints of the common people is a hard deal, and anyone would get annoyed after a while. This upsets the king, as this just means that there is no way for Horus to return to them. All they can do now is maintain distance and apologize for what happened. Saddened, he just puts his head down on the desk and sulks. Reiser thinks about how the king was playing it cool for the most part, but now he has broken down and has started acting like a girl in love. After thinking for a while, the king comes up with the idea of sending a bonus. He then tells Reiser to leave, as he thinks about it in detail. He regrets not being able to reward Horus for his work and letting him go. Giving away the antenna to them will definitely lessen the burden of the debt. Horus currently says that he is done with them, and they cannot oppose him. However, depending on how he reacts to the special gift, that all can change. Meanwhile, Horus can be seen deep inside a dungeon. There, he is attacked by a flying metal bird monster. Horus uses the aura and the flare to push the bird away. However, it seems to have not done much damage. Horus understands that the glare and aura won't do much damage so far into the dungeon. So, when the bird was about to attack again, Horus uses his mana detection skill to grab the source of the bird's mana and disturbs it. This allows him to then bring out a gun-style golem, which he later uses to shoot and take out the metal bird. This gives him a lot of items, which he later collects in his bag and returns home. Later, Horus could be seen picking out the good and bad items that he picked when in the dungeon. Lanhea came looking for him and finds him there. Lanhea asks him if he was taking the good stones out from the bad ones, to which Horus says yes. Even though the stones looked quite similar with his appraisal skills, he can tell them apart, knowing what is good and what is not. Tiras, worried, asks him that if the stones she got for him are bad, to which Horus says that they are good enough to be fixed. Lanhea then asks Horus if he is interested in the special gift stone that was coming from the Diamante Kingdom. Horus is confused at first, but he is later shocked to learn that the Diamante Kingdom are sending them a gift stone along with the antenna, which he had no knowledge of. Lanhea and Tiras explains that they are getting the antenna in exchange for reducing the Diamante's debt. Horus tells them that he no longer needs to run an entire city, so the antenna is not a necessity. However, Lanhea and Tiras know that with the antenna, Horus can actually work to create better golems. Horace understands their point and is overall pleased with the deal, as the antenna is quite the handy tool for him. Horace says it originally came from Zetsia Oration, a legendary craftsman known for creating ancient, powerful magic tools. Somehow, the kingdom managed to get their hands on one of his works. Lanhea can't help but point out how wasteful it is, letting something so valuable gather dust in a place where no one can use it. Horace agrees, saying they've been acting like it's some priceless treasure when, to them, it's just been a spare relic locked away. Lanhea adds that it was sealed deep in the underground vault of the castle. At that, Horace suddenly freezes. His expression shifts to panic as he mutters about the vault, as if realizing something important. But while he's stressing over it, the girls are far more interested in tearing open the package that had just arrived. When they finally lift the lid, Lanhea eagerly asks what he thinks of it. Horace takes one look and sighs, saying the kingdom clearly sent it without even knowing what it really was. Terra starts to worry that maybe the gift isn't something he can use, but Horace quickly sets that fear aside. In fact, he admits the opposite. It's an incredible find, something that could push his golem research ahead by nearly 10 years. The girls were even more excited than Horace, who tried to hide a small smile behind his hand. He admitted it was amazing how people failed to see the true value of what they owned. For him, obtaining something like this on his own would have taken pure luck. He explained that he had avoided using it before because it would have forced his research down a path he wasn't ready to take. That's why receiving it now felt perfect, even if King Barzil had likely sent it away without understanding its worth. To Horace, this was more than just a gift. It was exactly what he needed. When Lanhea asked if it was really that special, Horace made it clear. Even if the Demon King had been defeated, even if the world praised his achievements, even if the kingdom had begged him to stay at the castle alongside the hero while showering him with rewards, he still would have bowed countless times to the king just for this one item. That was how priceless it was. Terrace, hearing those words, grew uneasy. She wondered if their master was actually thinking about returning to the castle. But Horace shook that thought away. He said there was no chance. His opinion of the kingdom's people hadn't changed. And besides, working at the castle would have only kept him from reaching the Grand Orin. No matter what, he would have left eventually. Lanhea then asked if he intended to cancel all of Diamant's debt in return. Horace said yes, since a gift of this value deserved nothing less. Terrace could only imagine the arrogant nobles acting even wilder once they heard the debt was gone, their pride swelling out of control. But Langia's tone turned sharp. If those nobles ever forgot what it meant to carry the title of hero, she would personally remind them. Horace quickly caught on that the girls weren't just celebrating the gift. They were already planning to spread the news about the debt being erased, not out of kindness, but to bait the nobles into lowering their guard. Once the arrogance spilled over, they could make an example out of them. When Lanhea asked if stirring up the nobles would be a problem, she added that she had learned the trick from her master himself. Horace had no comeback for that, knowing she was right. Meanwhile, back in Diamant, King Barzil received official confirmation that the kingdom's massive debt had been completely cleared. The news left him stunned, and then, overwhelmed, he actually broke down in tears. Not long after, trouble started brewing outside the hero's mansion. A man set up camp with a telescope, quietly watching the women of the hero community as they went in and out. Word spread quickly. These were the same women who had helped clean up the last of the chaos after the Demon King's fall. Soon, curious kids ran over to peek through the other side of the telescope, but guards rushed in to stop them from touching it. The man, however, kept staring. He muttered to himself that the rumors about the hero community were true, and with a twisted smile, said he liked what he saw. His expression then turned even creepier as he declared his desire to make every single woman in the hero community his mistress. To top it off, he kissed the telescope with his oversized lips, his behavior disturbing everyone around. Inside the mansion, Horace and Lanhea were busy reviewing the nobles' recent movements when a report came in. One of their team members explained that someone from the Diamant Kingdom's ducal house was outside, demanding that all the women heroes become his mistresses. Horace only sighed at how quickly such arrogance had shown itself. Outside, the noble revealed himself, overweight and unpleasant, his face twisted with entitlement. He grew furious at their silence, shouting that nothing good would come of making him wait. The noble finally introduced himself as Ashton, head of the Riquotenides family. Lanhea frowned, saying it was the first time she had even heard his name, then demanded to know what he wanted. Ashton simply pointed at the women of the hero community, declaring that they were so beautiful he intended to claim all of them for himself. Lanhea immediately refused without hesitation. Ashton warned them of the consequences of rejecting him, as if the heroes should fear his threats. Lanhea was stunned at his arrogance, shocked that he thought he could bend the heroes to his will. Ashton sneered, calling them nothing more than people from a backwater kingdom only known for producing metal. Lanhea fired back, reminding him that the very sword she had used to defeat the Demon King came from that so-called poor country. If necessary, she would gladly show him how sharp it still was. Ashton's face twisted in anger at her defiance. He shouted that the leader of a country was responsible for repaying its debts, and as citizens, they were equally bound by that responsibility. Lanhea countered by asking if Ashton intended to trap Princess Lucia in debt, and then coldly added that there should be no problem if every favor was repaid on the spot. She also pressed him, asking if his plan was to bury them under outrageous interest rates. Ashton dismissed her words with contempt, insulting them as uneducated commoners. He then boasted that his kingdom had the right to demand Princess Lucia pay 100 million gold coins to his ducal house, and as for the members of the hero community, he valued them at another 100 million altogether. Lanhea stared at him in disbelief, doubting a greedy noble like him could ever produce that kind of money. She said if he really had it, then returning it immediately would be simple. Horace, however, shook his head. He didn't agree with that at all. Horace explained that canceling such a massive debt would only create a one-sided obligation, forcing Princess Lucia to repay its value in other ways. A debt was the same as a legal right. Holding it gave the lender power to demand conditions from the debtor. Ashton was taken aback, surprised that a mere commoner could speak with such clarity. But Horace wasn't finished. He added that even with such a right, a lender could never enforce it without a valid reason. Lanhea stepped in, saying the entire situation had felt strange from the very beginning. Just then, a group of soldiers approached Ashton carrying crates filled with precious metals looted from a nearby warehouse. They complained that they could have taken even more if certain people hadn't interfered. Some of the girls asked Lanhea who those men were, but she was just as confused. Ashton, however, spoke as if nothing was wrong. He declared that since the hero community would soon belong to him, everything they owned would eventually be his anyway. Lanhea could only sigh at the sheer arrogance dripping from his words. That was when Horace finally lost his patience. He could not believe there were people who operated with such shamelessness. He reminded them that the only reason he stayed in this country at all was because it held the rights to the Grand or Vein of Kinsky. His presence suddenly grew heavy, pressing down on Ashton. Horace asked if Ashton was deliberately trying to stand in the way of his plans. Then, with a mocking tone, he leaned in and asked the struggling noble what was wrong. The sight was almost amusing. An arrogant ducal lord forced to his knees before a commoner, humiliated in front of everyone. The guards rushed forward in anger, demanding to know what Horace was doing to their master. They urged Ashton to lift his head, trying to protect his pride. Right then, a passing photographer snapped a picture of the humiliating scene. Horace knew instantly that the photo would be plastered on the front page of the papers by morning. Lanhea smirked, saying it would be the perfect way to remember Ashton's otherwise forgettable name. Humiliated, Ashton stormed off into his carriage, shouting threats about making them pay for embarrassing him. His guards scrambled after him, but not before Lanhea called out, telling them to at least leave the metal ores behind. They ignored her and ran off. Annoyed, she suggested they go after him, and Horace agreed. As they gave chase, Lanhea asked her master what he meant earlier when he said this country was convenient for him. Horace explained that he was grateful Princess Lucia's family ruled the land. Deep inside the Grand Orin lay another dungeon, and he had something important to do there. The problem was, entering required a special key. That key belonged to the Yatsuro clan, a bloodline that had existed since the beginning of the world. Princess Lucia's Chaos family was part of that lineage. It was Langia's first time hearing the name, but Horus wasn't surprised. He explained that the clan ruled a territory hidden deep inside the Grand or Vein of Kinsky, where the dungeon was located. He had only learned of it through the biography of a certain man, but he was convinced the information was true. If Princess Lucia ever fell into debt and lost her rule over the land, their access to the Grand Orin would be gone as well. Lanhea quickly realized her master was protecting the princess to avoid any unnecessary problems. Horus confirmed she was exactly right. Meanwhile, Ashton was still fuming over the humiliation he had suffered earlier. He wanted Princess Lucia to fall into debt so he could force the heroes to live like ordinary citizens under his control. He couldn't believe there were still people who didn't respect authority. But as he looked at the small group of soldiers he had brought, he realized they weren't enough to take on the heroes directly. Frustrated, he turned his attention to the Chaos Palace itself. Storming inside, the guards stopped him, demanding his identity. One of his men stepped forward and proudly announced him. At Ashton's signal, the soldiers pushed forward and entered the princess's office. Ashton walked in calmly, as if he owned the place, and said he had come to make Princess Lucia pay a debt of 100 million gold coins. Idrika immediately stepped up, her voice firm, and told him to stop making a scene. She asked who these people were and why they thought they could barge in like this. Ashton leaned back on the sofa with a smug smile and introduced himself. He said he was the Prime Minister of the world's largest nation, the Diamante Kingdom, and head of the Reyes ducal family. He couldn't understand how they dared to ignore him. Idrika crossed her arms and said they would not agree. Paying this debt would make them no better than slaves to the Diamante Kingdom. Ashton smirked and said the world is ruled by power, and a country that only collects medals is already like a servant. He added that this was the first time anyone had forced a one-sided payment and that no World Council rule forbade it. Idrika shook her head and said that things would not go the way he wanted. Princess Lucia watched quietly, her eyes following every move as Ashton's frustration grew. In a sudden outburst, he stomped on a picture frame, shattering it under his foot. He could not believe they still weren't scared of him. Idrika tried to argue again, her voice steady, but then several swords suddenly appeared in front of her face, just inches away. She hadn't expected them to be serious. Ashton's eyes darkened, and his voice dropped cold. He warned that he would not repeat himself. In his view, this country, the princess, and even the heroes were only fit to be slaves. Princess Lucia tried to calm Idrika, but the alchemist refused to stay quiet. She pointed out that their country had always been exploited, and history had recorded it many times. Still, she added, those who tried to take advantage of them would eventually face consequences. One of Ashton's guards laughed loudly, mocking her. He asked what someone like her could possibly do with only a staff in her hands. Horus let out a small sigh. He said this kind of tense, aggressive atmosphere didn't belong in a royal office. When Ashton's side drew their swords and spoke harshly, Lanhea stepped forward with a smirk. She asked if they were trying to declare war. Ashton and his men blinked in surprise. Lanhea explained that they had come only because Ashton's soldiers had stolen their oars. On their way inside, they had felt the tension outside the palace, so they decided to check in, and that's how they ended up in the room. Ashton ignored her words completely. In his mind, he had the highest authority, and everyone else were just commoners. He declared that all he had to do was give the order, and his soldiers could surround the capital in no time. He shouted that his power came from his authority, and people like them should never dare to oppose him. Horus, calm and steady, shook his head. Real authority, he said, was given to those willing to set aside their own sense of what is right in order to protect what truly mattered when the time came. Anyone who called other countries slaves or tried to start wars did not deserve that kind of authority. People like that, he added, should be called criminals. Ashton's face turned red with fury. He barked orders for his soldiers to attack. Horus stayed cool and told Lanhea to take Princess Lucia and retreat. Lanhea leaped over the soldiers with ease, grabbing the princess and moving quickly out of harm's way, leaving only Idrika behind. Horus dodged the soldiers' attacks effortlessly, noting that they weren't a real threat. He smiled slightly, almost amused, and then announced that he would defend himself. With a single punch, Horus sent one guard flying, barely missing Idrika. Using his ability, he pulled the guard back toward him and slammed him hard onto the floor. Ashton froze, eyes wide, unable to believe what he had just seen. His mind raced. He could use this as an excuse to punish Horus, maybe even have him executed for hurting a soldier. Horus tilted his head, asking if Ashton still didn't understand. That's when Idrika noticed something strange. The knocked-out guard had no wounds at all. Horus explained calmly that after striking his opponents, he healed them instantly. There would be no visible injuries, though they would still feel the pain. Even if someone was knocked unconscious, there would be no proof left behind. Ashton refused to believe such a thing could exist. He barked orders for the rest of his soldiers to kill Horus. But no one moved. The silence grew heavy. Ashton shouted that it shouldn't matter if someone from a slave country died, trying to scare them into action. Instead, the soldiers shifted their attention toward Idrika. Horus stepped forward without hesitation. He punched two soldiers square in the stomach at once. One tried to vomit from the blow, but Horus calmly blocked his throat, forcing it back down. He shrugged and said he couldn't allow them to make a mess on the floor. Ashton's face twisted in fury. He demanded to know what Horus was. Horus replied simply, calm but confident. He was a golem master, strong enough to take down 3 trained soldiers with his bare hands. Ashton still refused to accept reality. He reached for his sword, ready to face Horus himself. Horus could see that words wouldn't change him. Without a second thought, he struck, landing a solid punch square on Ashton's face. The impact sent a clear message. This wasn't a fight the arrogant noble could win. After knocking out the soldiers, Horus decided to drag the trespassers back to the Diamond Kingdom's embassy. Idrika suggested they also send a letter of protest. Horus raised an eyebrow, surprised that this was the only action they planned to take after having weapons pointed at them. Dealing with diplomatic matters between countries, he thought, was such a bothersome task. Idrika shrugged and said it was just unlucky that their country was small. Later, Lucia relaxed and enjoyed the snacks Tira had brought, still finding it hard to believe all the chaos that had just happened. Idrika agreed. It had been completely unexpected, but she was even more shocked at how casually Horus had handled the soldiers, like it was nothing at all. Lanhea shrugged and explained that for their master, this kind of thing came as naturally as breathing. Horus, reading the newspaper, simply nodded in agreement. When they looked at the front page, their eyes widened. There was Ashton, kneeling before them, captured perfectly in the photograph. Idrika frowned, doubting that the arrogant noble had actually learned any lesson. Horus, with his usual calm, said not to expect him to stay down. He would return. Idrika gasped, shocked that even after everything, Horus thought the noble would come back. Horus explained that nobles from the Diamond Kingdom were known for holding grudges. They could never forget the pain or the wounded pride caused by commoners. Idrika muttered that they were narrow-minded, and Horus added that such nobles could only grow as people if they learned forgiveness, not just how to restrain themselves. Terrace, listening quietly, nodded. That explained why those nobles never truly matured, no matter how much power or money they had. Idrika wondered if they weren't afraid of facing revenge themselves. Horus shook his head calmly. People like that, he said, easily forgot their own pain because they lived in a position where they could remove anything that annoyed them. He expected that, within just a few days, they would feel the same kind of wound again. Meanwhile, Ashton stormed toward the hero community's base with his soldiers. He couldn't forget the humiliation he had suffered and refused to let the heroes get away just because they had defeated the Demon King. He ordered his men to capture all the girls and bring them before him, promising them a share of the reward. In his mind, even a hero would be powerless if attacked while asleep. Suddenly, all of Ashton's soldiers dropped to their knees. Confused, Ashton looked around, but the realization hit him quickly when he felt the crushing pressure pressing down on him. Lanhea stepped forward, her eyes cold and sharp. She said she had dealt with many fools in the past. She even regretted not letting the Demon King survive long enough to invade the capital. She remembered how the men once controlled by the Demon King had shown absolute loyalty, and that loyalty didn't disappear even after its death. That's why she believed men like these were better off eliminated. Without hesitation, Lanhea grabbed Ashton by the neck. Her voice was low, deadly serious. She told him she didn't care about his thoughts or about who was right or wrong. If he ever tried to stand in her way again, she would make an example out of him. Ashton's face went pale as the weight of her words and her presence hit him. For the first time, he felt powerless. Lanhea glared at Ashton one last time and ordered him to leave her sight immediately. For now, she would let him walk away with all his limbs intact. But that didn't mean he was off the hook. Before he could retreat, she warned him sharply that she would call for an urgent World Council meeting, and he needed to be ready for it. Meanwhile, Razor rushed to King Barzil with troubling news. Ashton's ducal house had officially declared that Princess Lucia's Dragonstone Kingdom was nothing more than a servant state of the Diamond Kingdom. On top of that, Ashton and his private army had attacked the Ruster reports base, but had ended up losing badly. Razor also handed the king a letter from the hero herself. King Barzil hesitated, fear clear on his face. He even cried out that he didn't want to read it. The envelope had a warning written on the outside, which made him even more nervous. Razor urged him to open it, and after a long pause, the king finally gave in. To his surprise, the hero's words were far more thoughtful than he expected. He had assumed she would demand that he take responsibility for Ashton's reckless actions, but she didn't. Instead, she was calling for a special World Council meeting. Lanhea, the hero herself, would personally host it and instructed that anyone who had a problem with her should be invited. King Barzil realized immediately that her plan was to confront all her critics at once. Since this was a World Council meeting, she probably wanted as many countries as possible to attend. Razor nodded, adding that there were indeed a few people who constantly picked fights with the hero. Many of them were high-status individuals who believed they were the ones destined to defeat the Demon King. Yet none of them had actually done anything against him, and most hadn't even tried. In truth, King Barzil had never really seen anyone seriously fight the Demon King, except for the heroes themselves. Everyone else had failed or only tried halfway. But here was Lanhea, a 17-year-old girl, taking on huge challenges without any fear. The letter she sent made it very clear. She didn't care whose rules or ideas were right or wrong. She didn't care if the nobles had done bad things in the past. Their history, pride, or excuses didn't matter. She only cared about fixing the problem and facing it head-on. The king was shocked. How could someone so young, barely out of her teens, be more mature than him? Even as a ruler, he sometimes struggled to make the right choices. Yet Lanhea acted with confidence and wisdom far beyond her age. Still, he reminded himself that people only grew stronger when they learned forgiveness. You had to let go of grudges, even against those who had hurt you, to truly become better. He thought about the history of the World Council. Long ago, religious leaders had taken too much control over the world. They made all the rules and decisions, and people depended on God too much instead of thinking for themselves. Humanity had learned from that mistake. People realized they could stand on their own without relying only on religion or divine guidance. That's why religious leaders were never invited to council meetings. Decisions had to be made by humans who understood the world themselves. Razor added his thoughts. He believed this upcoming World Council meeting was part of Langia's plan to show everyone who she really was as a hero. King Barzil could already imagine it. Lanhea standing tall in the middle of the room, calm and confident, while the nobles, adventurers, and other powerful people realized just how strong she was. The divine blood adventurers, members of religious nations, bloodline nations, and adventurer groups, were very proud and arrogant, but even they would feel nervous in front of Lanhea. The nobles who had caused her problems before, who trusted only their wealth and status, would see that their tricks and schemes meant nothing. Langia's words and actions were always precise. She knew how to teach a lesson without unnecessary violence. But King Barzil knew the meeting would still be chaotic. Some people would panic, some would argue, and some would secretly try to plan against her, but none could stop her. Every person belonged to at least one of these three powerful groups: religious nations, bloodline nations, or adventurer organizations. King Barzil and Razor knew this meeting would bring all of them together, which meant the tension and egos in the room would be huge. But right in the middle of it all would be Lanhea, calm and confident, handling everything perfectly like someone who had faced even worse challenges. King Barzil took a deep breath. He knew this meeting would change many things. Lanhea wasn't just showing power, she was sending a message. She was proving that true strength wasn't about money or titles. It was about courage, intelligence, and standing up against injustice. The king and Razor understood that after Lanhea acted, nothing in the World Council would ever be the same. King Barzil wondered if the Hero's Master would attend the World Council meeting. Razor was sure that Horus would come. After all, it was his students' achievements that were being downplayed, and as their master, he should at least show his face. Barzil agreed with that thought. The king also wondered if it was truly possible for someone to lose faith in the world they lived in. Razor reminded him to think about their own country, the place Horus had left behind. She was sure the Chaos and Dragonstone Kingdom was now much safer. The people there no longer worried about lands they considered unimportant. Still, Barzil remembered that some people firmly believed the strong had a duty to protect the weak. He thought about Langia's words in her letter and realized that her master's powers were not meant only for protection. They were about guidance and influence too. Both the king and Razor recalled the shameless complaints from commoners about the space they were given in the palace. The nobles had been granted authority and responsibility to protect others, yet their priorities were often selfish or misplaced. Barzil doubted even Razor would want to protect people like that without question. Since Razor stayed silent, the king continued. He said that even if someone did protect these people, they rarely received any thanks. Rewarding someone for their achievements, he explained, was just a way to assess effort, not a true recognition of value. There was far too little gratitude for the hero who had defeated the Demon King. Barzil clarified that he wasn't asking anyone to give the hero complete loyalty, but he insisted that unless everyone remembered the hero's role in saving the world, the worth of the very world itself would slowly diminish. He emphasized that the upcoming gathering, the World Council meeting, was extremely important. It wasn't just another political event. It was a moment to show respect, measure true strength, and make sure people understood the value of the hero who had protected them all. The hero herself, Lanhea, had told everyone to invite anyone who had problems with her. Her plan was simple. The best outcome would be if no one came at all. Razor, however, thought that was impossible. It was at that moment that King Barzil realized just how little the world valued heroes, or anyone who actually made a difference. If the world didn't recognize true strength and achievement, then it was his responsibility as the ruler of the strongest nation to show people what real value was. He had to make sure the hero's worth was respected and seen by everyone. Later, at the World Council meeting, Lanhea didn't waste time. She openly stated that Ashton had wronged her. She explained how shocked and upset she had felt when she discovered that Ashton was actually the Prime Minister of the Diamante Kingdom. Everyone in the room froze, stunned by her words. Then, with a calm but firm voice, she challenged anyone to speak up if they disagreed with her. A few nobles immediately started criticizing her. They told her not to act so proud just because she had defeated the Demon King. They admitted she had impressive achievements, but they insisted she had no official authority. One noble reminded her that the heroes group was made up of commoners and claimed they should be serving the nobility. He argued that the group should use the power they had used to save the world to strengthen relationships with the upper class, instead of acting on their own. Some nobles even suggested that the Golem Master leading the heroes was just playing with dolls and hiding some secret. Others complained that the hero who had saved the world had caused another noble to fall into debt. They disapproved of the heroes moving to a small country, saying it was inappropriate. And a few even went so far as to declare that Lanhea should marry the crown prince of the greatest country in the world, as if that would somehow make everything right. The nobles didn't stop. They kept pushing their own selfish goals, trying to protect the pride of their class no matter what. Langia's patience snapped. She called them selfish, and with the power her master had given her, she made sure they understood just how serious she was. The room went quiet. She was furious, not just because they insulted the country she lived in by calling it a land of slaves, but also because they had dared to invade her mansion and threaten the girls in her group. She had hoped for a fair and strong rebuttal from the council, something to address the wrongs done to her and her people. But the answer she got was disappointing. No apology, no recognition, nothing. She stood tall and declared that the power her master had entrusted to her had saved the world by defeating the Demon King. Then she pointed a sharp question at the nobles. Had they done anything to help? Her answer left no doubt. They had done nothing at all. Lanhea argued that those who achieved great deeds had the right to stand against those who had done nothing. It was one thing for nobles to observe, learn, and keep their distance. But it was completely unacceptable for them to try to control her and force her group into becoming their property. She called all those of noble blood ignorant and insisted that their harmful influence needed to end. Just then, someone spoke, telling her to keep believing in the world for a little longer. Lanhea, annoyed, demanded to know who had said it. King Barzil stepped forward. He reminded her that it had been a long time since the ceremony, and perhaps it was worth listening. Lanhea, unimpressed, shot back that the council meeting for the rulers would take place later. Right now, Barzil had no reason to speak to her. This had nothing to do with him. King Barzil spoke up, asking Lanhea not to misunderstand him. He explained that he had also come to the meeting with a complaint of his own. He said it had been a missed opportunity for the hero to invite only those who had problems with her. He made it clear he wasn't there to agree with the nobles' complaints, but to share his own thoughts and perspective. Lanhea looked at him, silent for a moment, and then told him to go ahead and speak. The king began talking about Hero Lanhea, the members of the Ruster Report, and their mentor Horus, who had guided them all. He thanked them sincerely for defeating the Demon King and saving the world. The sight of a world leader bowing before a teenage girl stunned everyone in the room. Even Lanhea herself couldn't hide her surprise. Barzil continued bowing as he spoke, reminding everyone about the rewards the World Council had already given to the hero community for their heroic efforts. But then he added that something important had been forgotten. Lanhea, quick to understand, guessed it was gratitude. Barzil nodded. The tense atmosphere in the room began to fade, and the other council members finally relaxed and could move again. Lanhea spoke, saying that she wasn't petty enough to refuse acknowledging someone else's personal growth. But she still wanted to know why he was only thanking them now, after so much time had passed. Barzil admitted she had every right to ask that question. He explained that he knew how people had looked down on the title of hero, how much disrespect they had shown, and how easy it would have been for Lanhea to lose faith in the world, even though she had saved it. He wanted to show her that there was still a reason to believe. Then he paused and said that the pressure Lanhea had used before, the same power she had displayed to control the room, was truly fearsome. To demonstrate, he focused and released the same kind of pressure, asking her if it felt the same. Everyone in the room, except for Lanhea, was forced to the ground again under the king's pressure. It was overwhelming, but with a single swing of her arm, Lanhea easily canceled it out, showing just how strong she was. Barzil laughed, admitting that he had thought he could win by using the pressure without proper training. Still, he couldn't believe how quickly he had been defeated. He even felt a little disappointed in himself. Lanhea glanced around and remarked that Barzil wasn't the type to act this way. The king explained that his country had many undeniable truths and pressures that had forced him to act differently from his usual self. He said he had wanted to meet the master named Horus because he had something to apologize for. At that moment, Horus appeared. He explained that he had no choice but to show himself since his name had been mentioned. For King Barzil, this was the first time meeting Horus in person, even though Horus had once served under him. Barzil started by apologizing for making Horus work in the castle for so long without giving him anything in return. Horus looked at the king for a moment, then told him to raise his head. He explained that the antenna he had received from the kingdom was more than enough as a reward. He liked it so much that it made all the years he had worked for the Diamond Kingdom feel completely worth it. Barzil nodded and said there was no longer any debt between them. Since Horus preferred to stay in the Dragonstone Kingdom rather than return to his own, the king had no problem with it. Then he asked if that answer satisfied Horus. Horus admitted that he had actually expected the king to ask him to return to the castle, so this outcome was better than he thought. Barzil explained that he had already given up on asking Horus to return to the castle. Instead, he promised to make his kingdom stronger through his own efforts, relying on his leadership rather than trying to control others. Then, he formally addressed Horus as the hero's master and asked him to show his pressure. He said that actions spoke louder than words and seeing it for himself would make everything easier to understand. Horus realized that the king had read the same book he had, so he agreed. When Horus released his pressure, it hit immediately. The king let out a heavy breath, showing just how intense it was. Barzil had not expected it to feel so strong, and Horus was surprised the king had managed to stay standing at all. The king even admitted he was more surprised than anyone else. Turning to Lanhea, Barzil agreed with her that the world was being run by incompetent and foolish rulers. But he reminded her that the world she had saved still held great possibilities. Even people with strong bloodlines still had the potential to do great things. He asked her to keep her faith in the world, just for a little longer. Lanhea stayed silent for a moment, thinking it over. Then she clapped her hands and admitted that this was her loss. She confessed that she had truly felt like giving up on the world, but the king had proven her wrong. Now she saw a true ruler standing before her. She explained that the title of hero was given to someone after accomplishing great deeds, but a ruler's authority came from their very existence and presence. She promised never to forget the words of gratitude King Barzil had given her for defeating the demon king. Barzil looked pleased at her response. Then he excused himself, saying he needed to decide which dungeon to throw the arrogant nobles into as punishment. Horus offered to share a list of possible locations, and the king thanked him, asking him to send it to his castle. After the meeting with the hero and the king, the nobles gathered in secret for a private discussion. They were furious and complaining non-stop. One of them couldn't believe it. How could the king treat the hero as his equal while he, a marquis of the same kingdom, was facing punishment? Another shouted that he was a duke from a different kingdom and had done so much for the Diamond Kingdom, yet here he was, facing consequences. Others joined in, insisting that they had all contributed greatly to the kingdom. They argued that the king had lost his way and needed to be guided back onto the right path. One of the nobles even suggested using communication magic. With it, they contacted someone they trusted and ordered the Sky Spirit Dragon to be sent to the capital of the Diamond Kingdom. The summoning stone for the dragon was hidden underground in Ashton's mansion. Their plan was bold. They wanted to summon the beast, take control of the capital, and force the king to see things their way. They didn't care if citizens were harmed. Their goal was more important than the people living there. One noble hesitated, asking nervously if it was really safe. He remembered the small-scale experiment in Kyoto County ordered by the Chaos and Dragonstone Kingdom. It hadn't gone well at all. Another noble waved off the concern, confident this time would be different. They planned to let the dragon use its full strength, and this time they were sure it could not fail. Suddenly, someone shouted in anger, unable to believe what was being planned. He could not accept that these nobles were risking so much, including innocent lives, for their own selfish goals. At the base of the World Council, a guard rushed in and announced something shocking. They had intercepted the nobles' communication magic and declared that everyone involved was now considered an international criminal. The news spread quickly, and soon King Barzil got word of it. He shouted in anger, unable to believe that people kept making such foolish mistakes. Razor tried to calm him down, but Barzil could not understand how Razor could stay so relaxed right after such a serious meeting. The situation involved Guy Gigant, a massive threat. It was said that a dwarven swordmaster had already defeated it and brought prosperity to his hometown. Barzil had expected Horus to take action in this case, so he was both frustrated and anxious. At that moment, someone knocked on the door. Razor checked and confirmed that it was Lanhea and Horus arriving. When Horus entered, Barzil immediately asked if he was heading to the capital. Horus confirmed that was indeed the reason for his visit. Then he mentioned he had a request. Curious, Barzil asked what it was. Horus explained that he wanted to borrow the Diamond Kingdom's underground antenna. King Barzil thought for a moment. He knew Horus wasn't the type to ask for permission just for fun. He guessed that Horus probably wanted the antenna for another golem. Horus confirmed that was exactly the case. Barzil realized that handing over control of such a huge and important antenna wasn't simple. Many official documents had to be completed first, and transporting it would take time. On paper, the antenna still officially belonged to the Diamond Kingdom. Barzil was surprised by how much Horus already knew about the process. Horus reminded him that he had worked in the castle for many years, so it made sense that he would understand all the rules and procedures. Barzil smiled and agreed to Horus' request. He offered his hand and told Horus that he could use the antenna as much as he needed. He even apologized if his hand was still a little sweaty from earlier events. Horus didn't mind and shook the king's hand firmly. The king then offered teleportation magic to help Horus reach the capital faster if needed. Horus politely refused, explaining that the documents would still take time to process, so he would travel on his own. With that, he left. Barzil turned to Lanhea and asked if she wasn't going to accompany him. He had expected her to watch her master in action, seeing firsthand what a true hero could do. Lanhea shook her head. She said it wouldn't help her, because her way of seeing battles was very different from her master's. Meanwhile, somewhere in the Diamond Kingdom, the summoning stone pulsed with intense magical energy. The power built and built until suddenly, something massive appeared in the middle of the kingdom's capital, ready to cause chaos. The citizens of the capital looked up and froze in terror. High above them, a massive black dragon hovered, its presence so powerful that the air itself seemed to shake. People screamed and ran in every direction, desperate to escape as the dragon prepared to unleash its deadly breath attack. Through the chaos, a lone man stepped forward, carrying a giant sword that gleamed in the sunlight. He pushed through the panicking crowd, ready to face the dragon. As the dragon's breath surged toward the city, the man swung his sword, releasing a sharp aura slash that cut through the attack before it could hit anyone. He could hardly believe his role in all this. His only job was to stall the dragon until the hero's master arrived. It frustrated him to no end. Most members of the hero community had already been sent off to other countries and would not be coming back anytime soon. On top of that, nobody had even called for an S-ranked adventurer, even though the SS-ranked heroes were missing entirely. This meant he couldn't even take his long-awaited promotion exam. Grumbling to himself, he mocked how the A-ranked Deed of Twilight was apparently considered strong enough to be used as bait. Despite his annoyance, he kept swinging at the dragon, taunting it as he went. But then he realized something terrifying. His powerful slashes barely scratched the dragon. Its black scales were thick and unyielding, and every attack bounced off like hitting solid stone. The man's confident smirk disappeared, replaced by a grim understanding. This was no ordinary dragon. This was a force of destruction he could not take lightly. This fight could easily cost him his life. The danger was intense, and even the bravest would hesitate. After some time, Horus finally arrived, flying in on a sleek aircraft. Thanks to the king's evacuation orders, the area was safer than he expected, and most of the citizens had already cleared out. Horus quickly noticed that only Deed of Twilight was still fighting the dragon. The adventurer had managed to hold it back for an entire hour, but it had taken a serious toll on his arms. Horus didn't waste a moment. He jumped into the fight and shouted for the dragon to focus on him instead. Deed of Twilight froze in surprise when he saw Horus carrying an enormous firearm. He realized instantly that this man was the hero's master. Before he could even react, Horus fired at him, not to harm, but to heal. To the adventurer's shock, his arms were fully restored, even repairing his torn sleeves and gauntlets. He flexed his hands, checking carefully, and confirmed that everything worked perfectly again. Seeing that Deed of Twilight was now unharmed, the adventurer decided to slip away quietly, knowing his part was done. Horus, meanwhile, explained that he had rushed to the capital at full speed and admitted he wasn't entirely feeling well either. Without delay, he stored his aircraft using storage magic and turned his full attention to the massive dragon. He readied the same huge gun and fired at the beast. The dragon barely flinched and charged straight at him, knocking him off balance midair. It followed with a powerful tail strike, but Horus moved with incredible speed, dodging it effortlessly. Then he landed a powerful body blow on the dragon. The punch was so strong that the dragon's eyes nearly popped out of its head, and the force sent the massive creature flying all the way toward the mountains. Horus muttered to himself that he had set the bone golem to stable mode. That kept its magic power balanced, but it also lowered its combat strength more than he had expected. To make his gun-type golem stronger, he needed the bone golem inside his body to give him extra power. On top of that, he had to improve its calculation ability, which would decide how well he could control it. For now, keeping it in stable mode was the safest choice. He realized that reading about something and actually using it in battle were two completely different things. Theory was one thing, but the real fight demanded quick thinking and precision. While Horus was deep in thought, the dragon on the ground let out a massive breath attack. Without even moving much, Horus casually blocked it and smirked, saying the dragon was unlucky. The beast looked stunned and speechless, as if it hadn't expected anyone to handle its attacks so easily. Horus explained out loud that every dragon breath attack was filled with magic power, and magic always wanted stability. If he could convince the attack that becoming air was more stable than staying as a concentrated breath, he could neutralize it with just a single touch. He added that only someone who truly understood magic, someone with deep knowledge of its nature, could pull off such a trick. Then he warned the dragon not to underestimate humans. The dragon, furious, tried another breath attack. This one was stronger than the last, and Horus noticed immediately. He dodged it smoothly, realizing that while the dragon didn't understand his words, it had figured out his touch was the problem. The dragon had learned to make its attack more stable, trying to prevent Horus from altering it again. Horus grinned slightly, realizing the fight had turned into a game of wits. It wasn't just raw strength now. Both sides had to think, adjust, and outsmart each other. Horus shook his head, finding the dragon's stubbornness a bit too much trouble. He decided it was easier to calm the beast than keep dodging. With one quick punch, he struck the breath attack before it even left the dragon's mouth. The explosion made the dragon roar in pain, and Horus groaned, complaining that the noise was unbearable. The dragon didn't give up. It slashed at him with its massive claws, managing to push him back a little. Even though it stayed on the ground, it settled into a fighting stance, ready to continue. Horus muttered to himself that something big was about to happen. Before he could finish his thought, the dragon suddenly appeared behind him, swiping with its claws. Horus rolled just in time, realizing that this beast could teleport short distances. The dragon then launched a barrage of fireballs, forcing Horus to dodge rapidly. Just when he thought he had a moment to breathe, the dragon reappeared above him and smashed him hard with its tail. Horus flew through the air, but he quickly conjured a barrier, softening his fall so he could keep fighting. Irritation flickered in his eyes as he watched the dragon turn away, preparing another breath attack aimed straight for the capital. He couldn't call it cowardice, it was a smart move to gain an advantage. Horus gritted his teeth and got ready to intercept. He admitted that the weapon he was about to use wasn't his absolute strongest, maybe fourth or fifth best. But it didn't matter. He had to test it now. The breath attack hit him head-on, but when the smoke cleared, Horus was completely unharmed. He smirked, saying the creation, called Deus Ex Machina, wasn't finished yet, but this was the perfect chance to see what it could do. In this situation, the dragon's strength didn't scare him. Victory was already in his hands. Summoning a gleaming sword, Horus charged at the dragon. The creature lashed its tail at him in a counterattack, but Horus swung cleanly, slicing the tail off. The dragon screamed in pain, leaving a trail of smoke and fire behind as it reeled from the strike. Horus let out a quiet laugh and admitted that he had added the bonus the king had given him, though he didn't expect it to work this well. The bone golem's power relied heavily on calculation ability, so he had to switch his cub's function from expanding range to boosting calculations. That small change made a huge difference in his control over the golem. At that exact moment, the angry dragon appeared behind him, clearly trying to catch him off guard. It spit out a series of fireballs in rapid succession, aiming to overwhelm him. Horus didn't panic. He dropped his sword for a moment and blocked all the attacks with a single punch from his fist. The force of the blow sent shockwaves through the air, and he followed up with a strong, precise punch straight into the dragon. Horus noted that he was still using a prototype, and the magic inside hadn't fully stabilized yet. Even so, the power he unleashed was already close to its maximum. He couldn't say for sure how strong it would become once perfected, but right now it was terrifying. Not wanting to drag out the fight, he summoned his sword again, feeling the familiar weight in his hands. The dragon, refusing to give up, released a final desperate breath of fire. Horus shook his head and said that if their powers had been closer, maybe the outcome would have been different. But in reality, this was all the dragon could manage without proper knowledge or skill. With perfect timing, he swung his sword at the fiery attack. The slash was so powerful that it cut clean through the flames and the dragon itself. It was as if the massive beast was nothing more than soft butter. With a deafening crash, the dragon split in half and collapsed to the ground, leaving a cloud of smoke behind. Horus stood tall, breathing steadily, surveying the battlefield. The fight was over, and victory was absolute. Horus looked around, expecting to see treasure scattered on the ground, gold coins, ingots, maybe some magical items. But there was nothing, just the dust and smoke where the dragon had fallen. Then, a bright pillar of light shot up from the spot, signaling that the fight wasn't over yet. The dragon was still alive, roaring in pain, but barely moving. As the thick clouds of smoke drifted away, Horus finally saw the sky clearly. More dragons had appeared, soaring through the air with terrifying energy. He couldn't believe it, high-ranking dragons were actually using numbers to overwhelm a single human. It was a serious tactic, and it clearly showed they weren't holding back. Since the dragons were putting in effort, Horus decided it was time to answer in kind. With a snap of his fingers, the ground trembled. A powerful cyclone spun up from the earth, twisting the clouds above. From beneath the ground, a massive golem slowly emerged. This was Horus's creation, the Orchestrion, also known as the Barrage Iron Man. Its shoulders fired missiles, and openings in its fingertips blasted continuous shots. True to its name, it was a weapon designed to fire endlessly, raining destruction on anything that moved. The dragons didn't stand a chance. One by one, they were shot down, exploding midair from the relentless assault. But Orchestrion didn't stop there. It turned its heavy artillery toward the rest of the dragons, blasting them apart with just a few precise shots. Horus explained to himself that the Orchestrion used magical bullets that never needed reloading and had no recoil. On top of that, it could calculate the perfect path for every shot, making each attack deadly accurate. Still, Horus noticed something strange. None of the fallen dragons dropped any loot. That was unusual even for magical creatures. Deciding to change tactics, he ordered the Orchestrion to switch to paralyze mode. With a single shot, the dragons froze in midair, their wings locked. Then, they dropped to the ground helplessly. Horus stepped back, watching his creation work perfectly. The battlefield was under his control now, and the dragons had learned just how unstoppable he could be. Horus studied the battlefield carefully. He realized why the dragons weren't dropping loot. These creatures were summoned monsters, acting separately from their master. That meant nothing would really change unless he took down the main dragon itself, the real source of the chaos. Suddenly, a huge dragon appeared right in front of him. Its tail whipped forward with deadly force, but Horus stayed calm. He simply stepped to the side, letting the attack miss by inches, and remarked that such strikes were useless against him. The dragon switched tactics, swinging its claws, but Horus dodged every swipe effortlessly. He thought to himself that when a number strategy like this was used, almost all of the main body's energy went into controlling the summoned creatures. They were being directed in real time, which made them fast and dangerous, but also predictable. Soon, Horus noticed no new dragons were appearing. The main dragon had finally reached its limit. But the monster wasn't giving up. It was stopping the summons to pour all its energy into making itself stronger. The dragon roared in frustration, its massive body surging with magic power, and launched a furious claw attack. Horus calmly grabbed the claws in midair and held them with ease, then shoved the beast back with a single powerful push. The dragon realized it couldn't win and tried to escape, but Horus wasn't about to let it go. He didn't hate the dragon, but he knew he could use it to reach his goal. As the dragon made one last desperate attempt, releasing a huge, fiery breath attack, Horus met it head-on. He swung his sword, piercing straight through the dragon's body. The attack cut completely through, and the creature vanished from the sky in an instant. The adventurer who had been watching from below could hardly believe what he had just seen. Even after witnessing it with his own eyes, it was hard to accept that Horus had defeated the massive dragon all by himself. The iron golems had already been impressive, but the amount of magic Horus had used was on a completely different level. In that moment, the adventurer finally understood and fully acknowledged Horus as the true master of the hero.